This is the business and economy English reading from the New York Times Chinese part, and the topic is 5 years on, China's property crisis has no end in sight. When China Evergrande, once the biggest Chinese property developer, went public in Hong Kong in 2009, the country's real estate market was red hot. The frenzy over the company was so intense that for every lucky person who bought at least one share of stock, 46 others were shut out. How times have changed. Now, a symbol of China's real estate boom and bust, Evergrande was delisted from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange on Monday, 4 years after the company first warned that it was facing financial difficulties and 2 years after it showed bankrupt protection. Evergrande's collapse with $300 billion in debt mirrors the slow and painful unwinding of China's property sector. Government policy staff of a sudden crash and instead deliver a grinding slowdown. The housing downturn has not delivered the devastating shock that the United States suffered in the 2008 financial crisis. But it has been hanging over the economy for 5 years with no end in sight. Last month, new home prices dropped at their fastest pace in 9 months, and the price of second-hand homes continued to slide, according to the National Bureau of Statistics of China. As the slump continues, the government has stepped in to prop up just enough in-debt property companies to prevent a broad collapse. China Banker, one of the country's biggest developers, has repeatedly lent on its top shareholder, the state-owned firm Shenzhen Metro, for loan to cover obligations from its $51 billion of debt. Shenzhen Metro has extended $3.4 billion overtime loans to Banker this year. Banker reported on Friday that it lost $1.7 billion in the first 6 months from January through June, 21% worse than a year earlier. When Beijing rolled out rules in 2020 to curb the excessive borrowing of property developers, it kicked off a downward spiral, pushing many real estate firms to the brink. But the government has stopped it short of an industry-wide bailout, instead taking steps such as relaxing purchase restrictions and encouraging banks to lend more. Andrew Collier, a senior fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School, said the result was that pain is going to go on for a very long period of time. It is difficult approach from the one adopted in China last significant real estate downturn around 2015, when Beijing spent hundreds of millions of dollars to pay residents' cars to trade in dilapidated shops in smaller cities and towns. While the policy rebuilt the market, it also unleashed another building boom fueled by developers taking on excessive debt China is very leery of pouring good money after bad in the property market, Mr. Collier said. Adding that the notion that the central government is going to bail out the property sector is just not going to happen. While some of the largest developers are still trying to restructure, many smaller ones have gone under, and the downturn has devastated business and jobs in sectors that rose up around the real estate boom, from construction to property sales to landscapers. This month, Hong Kong's High Court ordered China South City Holdings, a mid-sized property developer, liquidate after a judge ruled that it had not made significant progress on its restructuring plans. The continuing property market side comes at a vulnerable moment for the Chinese economy. A trade war has limited China's ability to rev up its export engine. While consumer spending remains soft, the government is throwing money into semiconductors, robotics, and other technologies. But those investments are unlikely to pay off quickly enough to fill the hole left by a shrinking property sector. It's hard to overstate the real estate industry's importance. At its peak, the sector accounted for roughly 30% of China's economy. Proceeds from land sales to property firms fills local government coffers. Many Chinese households turn to real estate, believing it was a safe investment for their savings. The recent data is alarming. While new construction has slowed drastically, the inventory of available homes is growing, not shrinking. In the first 7 months of 2025, the amount of new housing under construction nationwide was down almost 20% from the same period a year ago. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the number of vacant homes available for sale is more than twice the historical average. According to ETI, a financial media and research group backed by the Shanghai Municipal Government. In February, Military E 35 listed for sale an apartment she shared with her husband in Hefei, an industrial city in central China. They had bought the home 3 years ago for about 3,300,000 and spent an additional 80,000 decorating and furnishing the apartment. They listed the property fully furnished for about their initial purchase price. Thousands of real estate agents and potential buyers expressed interest, but all the offers came in at least 15% below her asking price. One buyer came in with a lower offer. She was furious. I wonder why it was like this and how it could be so bad, she said. Miss Yu, a marketing officer at an agricultural technology firm, eventually pulled the listing and decided to stay in the apartment because she could not accept losing more than $100,000. She said her mistake was persuaded in that buying an apartment was a sound investment. Her real estate agent advised her to accept a smaller loss now, as it will be even harder to sell later. Miss Yu also does not think property price in Hefei, a so-called second-tier city that is not economic and political hub like Beijing or Shanghai, will ever rebound to past peak. This month, Goldman Sachs said in a research note that the July sales data showed that a few signs recovering price in the real estate market had been limited to the top-tier cities. But even in those cities, the local governments are taking steps to spur demand, a sharp reversal of years of measures to tamp down speculative buying. This month, Beijing's municipal government rolled back long-standing restrictions limiting the number of homes that residents can buy in the city suburban area. Analysts said this might spur their major cities such as Shenzhen and Shanghai to follow with similar moves to ease the supply glut. When Lily Zhang, a technology industry worker, showed her apartment in Beijing this month, she was surprised by how weak the market was. She eventually sold the place for less than what she was asking, but she felt lucky to secure a deal, having encountered mostly window shoppers who had no intention of buying. Mrs. Zhang said her experience as Beijing homeowner was a roller coaster ride. She jumped on opportunity to buy in 2016, feeling pressure because apparent price was rising so quickly. The price continued to soar, prompting agents to call her to gauge her interest in selling. She kept putting it off until she and her husband had a baby and their apartment suddenly felt too small. But by then, the market had softened the price was prompting. She eventually broke even on her purchase. As if nothing had happened over the past 9 years, she said, no one was willing to offer a price. That was very scary. Mrs. Zhang added, when no one offered me a price, I panicked. Thanks for today's listening and reading.